October 29th, 1929, Black Tuesday. The New York Stock Exchange is in a panic. Frantic investors have scrambled to unload their stocks at any price. Everyone wants to sell. No one wants to buy. Suddenly, even the most gilt-edged securities are practically valueless. The stock market crash has come, and the Great Depression has begun.
The learner will appraise the economic, social, and political changes in the 30s. Before we start this unit, we need to understand what the goals of this unit are. What does the word appraise mean? We're going to look at the key policies and events of the 30s and evaluate the effectiveness of these policies. What impact did they have on the U.S. during that time, and are there any leftover consequences today? Let's talk about a depression. All nations have depressions, all nations have recessions, all markets experience bad stock changes, and all markets can fall to horribly low debts. A depression, the true definition, is a period of severely reduced economic activity characterized by sharp rise in unemployment. What makes the Great Depression, and why is it so different from what we just discussed? A depression is a normal phase. Countries go in and out of it all of the time. Several factors play into the Great Depression. The first thing, we have the stock market. It did crash in 1929, but this would have recovered had there not been underlying problems at the core of our economic stability. This crash did not cause the Great Depression, and that's kind of a misconception during this time, because many people say, oh, the stock market crash caused the Great Depression. There are several things, and let's think back to World War I. This is where we can have a good start of this problem. Do you remember what happened in World War I? We're fighting a war in Europe. Our soldiers need food. We need to produce more food. So we created more farmland in the Midwest. We dug up more land, we planted crops. The farmers borrowed money to buy this land. They borrowed money to buy more equipment, to buy the seeds. What happened when the war ended? We don't need that food anymore. So we have this surplus of food that the farmers cannot sell, mortgages they cannot pay, and they go bankrupt. So when the farmers go bankrupt, what happens to their land? No one's farming it. So there's nothing on this land. Now I want you to remember that, because that's going to be a very important thing later. So I want you to try to think about that and predict what's going to happen when you have thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres of land that's just dug up and there's nothing there. And of course, we remember the 1920s. We were having a good time in the 1920s. We're living on credit. We have this thing called the installment plan. This was brand new in the 1920s. You go to the store, put it on my installment plan. This was the precursor to the credit card. So we had people living beyond their means. They had trouble paying off their debts, and then they started being forced to spend less. This hurts the economy, because if people are not spending as much money, the businesses now suffer. We do need to discuss the crash itself. Black Thursday, October 24th, 1929, this is when the trouble began. Prices began to drop. Investors started to frantically sell all of their stock. And then they started to have panics and runs on banks. Does anybody know what a run on a bank is? Well, I have a really good example from my favorite movie, so let's watch that.
Don't look now, but there's something funny going on over there at the bank, George. I've never really seen one, but that's got all the earmarks of being a run. Hey, lady, you got any money in the bank? You better hurry.
George, let's not stop. Let's go.
Uh-oh.
Please, let's not stop, George.
Well, hello, everybody. Miss Thompson, how are you? Hurry, what's the matter? Can't you get in? that's right. Let's come on in. Come on, Jimmy. Now, look, why don't you all sit down? Here, there are a lot of seats over there. Make yourself at home.
George, can I see you a minute? Why did you call? Well, I just did, but they said you left. This is a pickle, George. This is a pickle.
All right, now what happened? How did it start?
Well, how does a thing like this ever start? All I know is the bank called our old.
When?
About an hour ago, I handled all our cash.
All of it?
Every cent of it, and still was less than we owed.
Holy mackerel!
And then I got scared, George, and closed the doors.
The whole town's gone crazy.
Yeah, hello? George, it's Potter.
Hello?
George, there is a rumor around town that you've closed your doors. Is that true? Oh, well, I'm very glad to hear that. George, are you all right? Do you need any police?
Police? What for?
Well, mobs get pretty ugly sometimes, you know. George, I am going all out to help in this crisis. I have just guaranteed the bank sufficient funds to meet their needs. They will close up for a week and then reopen.
Just took over the bank.
I may lose a fortune, but I am willing to guarantee your people too. Just tell them to bring their shares over here, and I will pay 50 cents on the dollar.
Oh, you never miss a trick, do you, Potter? Well, you're going to miss this one.
If you close your doors before 6 p.m., you will never reopen.
George, was it a nice wedding? Gosh, I wanted to be there.
Yeah. You can take this one off now. Now, just remember that this thing isn't as black as it appeared. I have some news for you, folks. I was just talking to old man Potter, and he's guaranteed cash payments to the bank. The bank's going to reopen next week.
But, George, I got my money here. Did he guarantee this place?
Well, no, Charlie, I didn't even ask him. We don't need Potter over here.
I'll take mine now.
No, but you're thinking of this place all wrong, as if I had the money back in a safe. The money's not here. Well, your money's in Joe's house. That's right next to yours. And in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Maitland's house, and 100 others. You're lending them the money to build, and then they're going to pay it back to you as best they can. Now, what are you going to do, foreclose on them?
I got $242 in here, and $242 isn't going to break anybody.
Okay, Tom. All right. Here you are. You sign this. You get your money in 60 days.
60 days?
Well, that's what you agreed to when you bought your shares.
Tom, did you get your money?
No.
Well, I did. Old man Potter will pay 50 cents on the dollar for every share you got. Yes, cash.
Well, what do you say?
No, Tom, you have to stick to your original agreement. Now, give us 60 days on this.
Okay, Randall.
Are you going to Potter's?
Better to get half than nothing.
Randall, wait. Now, listen to me. I beg of you not to do this thing. If Potter gets a hold of this building and alone, there'll never be another decent house built in this town. He's already got charge of the bank, he's got the bus line, he got the department stores, and now he's after us. Why? Well, it's very simple, because we're cutting in on his business, that's why. Because he wants to keep you living in his slums and paying the kind of rent he decides. Joe, you had one of those Potter houses, didn't you? Well, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten what he charged you for that broken-down shack? Here, Ed, you remember last year when things weren't going so well and you couldn't make your payments? Well, you didn't lose your house, did you? You think Potter would have let you keep it? Can't you understand what's happening here? Don't you see what's happening? Potter isn't selling, Potter's buying. And why? Because we're panicky and he's not, that's why. He's picking up some bargain. Now, we can get through this thing all right. We've got to stick together, though. We've got to have faith in each other.
But my husband hasn't worked in over a year, and I need money.
How am I going to live until the bank opens?
I got doctor bills to pay.
I need cash.
I can't keep bargains on faith. I got
How much do you need?
Hey! I got $2,000. Here's $2,000. This will tide us over to the bank reopens. All right, Tom, how much do you need?
$242.
No, Tom, just enough to tide you over to the bank.
I'll take $242.
There you are.
That'll close my account.
Your account amount's still here. That's a loan. Okay. All right, Ed.
Well, I got $300 here, George.
All right, now, Ed, what'll it take until the bank opens? What do you need?
Well, I suppose $20.
$20. Now you're talking. Thanks, Ed. That's fine. All right, now, Miss Thompson, how much do you want?
But it's your own money,
Now,
George.
fine about that. How much do you want now?
I can get along with 20, all right.
$20, fine.
And I'll sign the papers.
You don't have to sign anything. I know you pay when you can. That's okay. All right, Miss Davis.
Could I have $17.50?
That's your heart. Of course you can have it. You got 50 cents. 7.
We're gonna make it, George.
6.
I'll never close this up today.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bingo! We made it. Come to the door, you.
Come to class tomorrow prepared to have a discussion on the stock market crash.